Hello, welcome to episode 15 of TGIK. Oh, let me go to my full screen here. I'm Joe Beda, I'm your host here. I am the CTO of Heptio, which is a startup in Seattle, and we're actually pretty distributed, working to bring Kubernetes to a wider audience around the world. So hello, everybody. So we already have some folks on the line that have been letting us know that they are joining us, and so this is always fun. So we have Bharat, Vladimir, Suresh, Ray. That's great. And Ray, I'm sorry. I should probably have some like intro music that sort of brings you in. But Ray says that he jumps out of his chair when I start talking. So thanks. I appreciate everybody joining me on Friday. One of the things that I didn't realize when we started this thing up was that this is 1 p.m. on Friday for me, so like my work week is winding down. For a lot of folks, though, this is Friday night or, perhaps even like early morning. And so, it's kind of fun that folks are winding down and joining me here. So I really appreciate that. So what we do here, for those who haven't tuned in before, is I'm one of the folks that started Kubernetes, and one of the interesting things for me is that there's this huge ecosystem out there, and I'm spend all week, all day enmeshed in what's going on, and I still can't keep up with all the fun stuff that's going on out there. And so I've been using this series of videos to both explore new concepts, but then also go back and explore some stuff that I know pretty well and present that to folks. And so that's been a lot of fun, because there's a chance for me to talk to people directly via the chat here, but then also to explore new things that I don't know about and learn new things also. And so we get to do that a little bit together. So yeah, so let's see. So Vladimir says that 4 p.m. where he's at, so it's sort of a little bit of a ritual. Mateus in Brazil, you guys aren't too far off time-wise. So so thanks for joining me. So the plan today is I'm going to look at this new project from the open source folks at Microsoft called Brigade. It's kind of a workflow engine system, but it's a little bit of an interesting take on it from what I've seen. And so I'm really looking forward to digging into that. The image that I did here, I'm not sure when they named it Brigade, what kind of brigade they might have been talking about, because there's no usually it's like a military thing, but there's also like a fire brigade, which is kind of interesting too. And so I when I chose the image here, I picked a firehouse because I think maybe it's fire brigade that we're talking about. But in any case, we're going to dig into Brigade. But I also like to start out by going over some interesting stuff that's going on in the community that we can go ahead and start talking about and spend a little bit of time up front. And if you have folks have questions about stuff that you may have heard or seen about what's going on in the Kubernetes world, feel free to hey Jesus. So feel free to throw them at me, and we can talk about that, and usually spend the first 10 or 15 minutes going over some of that stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about, I'm going to switch to my screen here, is this project that we at Heptio announced this week called Contour. Now this was done, the first project that Dave Cheney did since he joined us. So Dave Cheney is super well known in the Go community. The nicest curmudgeon you'll ever work with. He's actually really great. He lives in the future, otherwise known as Australia, and he's been having a blast doing this stuff. And what Contour is it's a ingress controller for Envoy, and so Envoy is the okay. So one of the things that Ralph was telling me is that the comment delay here can sometimes get a little bit out of whack, where you say something and then the response, when I see it and when I can respond to it, can get long. Not quite so bad right now. It kind of comes and goes, but yeah. So hopefully, I want to keep it as interactive as possible. But Contour is an ingress controller for Envoy. So it's a way to use Envoy inside your Kubernetes cluster with for essentially bringing traffic in. And the nice thing about sort of the way Ingress works is that it works as an HTTP configurator, load balancer configurator. And so that means that the sort of the plumbing that you have to do between you and your cloud provider, you can do that once, or if you're running on-prem, between you and sort of whatever network rules you need to do to get to the outside. And then you get a single IP address that comes in, and then from there, in this case, Envoy is then terminating those connections, looking at the stuff, and then directing based on the content of the HTTP stream. And this is different from service types equal load balancers, which creates a new connection to the outside world for each service. So it's a good way. So Envoy itself, okay, yeah. So good question. I'm not going to even try. Drazzle. What is Envoy? So Envoy is a reverse proxy / load balancer. And so its job, and I think other things in this class, Nginx can play this role and is very popular. You'll see people that they'll buy hardware appliances that do this. Cloud providers have load balancers that can operate in this mode. For Amazon, it's the application load balancer, ALB is their built-in one that would be sort of a peer to something like Envoy. Google has layer 7, L7 load balancers that are that thing. But basically what these things do is they accept incoming HTTP connections. And typically this is HTTP, HTTPS, HTTP2. Incoming HTTP connections, and then based on the content of that connection, the host, the path, the method perhaps, based on that information, they then go ahead and decide which server to go ahead and send and sort of proxy that thing back to. And then they'll also do things like also take into account other dynamic rules of like, well, I want to send 10% of the traffic perhaps to this set of servers, and then the rest of it to this other set. And they may do some health checking to make sure if one of those servers goes down. So that's generally the role that an L7 load balancer or a sort of reverse proxy plays. The interesting thing about Envoy is that it was built in a very cloud native way. So it's really built from the ground up to be extensible and dynamically driven, whereas a lot of the existing solutions in this space require a sort of very sort of heavy reload every time you reconfigure them. And as you all know, Kubernetes is a very dynamic environment, so having a load balancer that can deal with that dynamicism is a really good thing, and Envoy is a great fit there. HA proxy is another example on this Matthias is talking about. So really interesting stuff there. A little bit of a tangent from what we're going to talk about today. The interesting thing, and this is what I spent a little bit of time doing last week, is I wrote up how to use this with the Amazon network load balancer, which is their sort of layer 3, layer 4 load balancer. And so if you go back to my Ingress episode of TGIK, I drew out some diagrams and go over some of this stuff. This is really exciting because it shortens the network path when things are coming in. Some really good stuff that comes out of this. And so I wrote some instructions up there. And then this morning, Micah Hausler presented a demo of native, and if you read these instructions, they're like very manual of like going in and configuring the console. There's work that hopefully this will make it in for the next version of Kubernetes that essentially goes through and lets you create the Amazon NLBs using the Amazon cloud provider, and hopefully this will make it into 1.9. So that's really exciting stuff there. And so Micah gave that demo during SIG AWS this morning. So let's see. Not sure the Navy ever uses Brigade. It was an Army thing. Yeah. I was looking up on like pictures of Brigade. What can you find? It turns out that it's kind of crazy. There's all sorts of different usages of the word. All right, and then let's see. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is there was a demo this week at SIG Auth, and I have the video here, and I'll put all these links in the description afterwards, which covered this system that I've been involved with for a long time called Spiffy. And then there's a sort of implementation of Spiffy called Spire that some friends of mine at this company called SciTail have been working through. And this is essentially a way to give pods identity, and so that you can do secure communication. And so this is really exciting if you're really interested in this sort of identity authorization space. this is a really, really cool thing to take a look at. And then the other sort of heads up that I wanted to give folks for 1.9, and this is a little bit of a deep topic, but I haven't covered it in TGIK, but a lot of folks may be familiar with this idea of admission controllers or initializers with Kubernetes. And this is a way for cluster administrators to play a role in both changing and modifying and rejecting requests as they come in when people want to make changes to the underlying Kubernetes resources. And looking forward to 1.9, there's a lot of folks working right now to take, and there's a lot of parallels between sort of doing admission controllers with webhooks versus this initializer mechanism. A lot of the folks in SIG API machinery are working on taking the webhook method of these things to beta, and then along the way allowing these things to mutate things. And so anybody who's been involved in terms of being able to enable programming the Kubernetes control plane, this is actually really exciting news that's coming down the pike there. So both the NLB support and then webhooks, mutating webhook stuff is still for 1.9, but I think it's kind of fun to actually sort of see what's coming down the pike. So this is what I spend a lot of my time doing, is going to these SIG meetings and understanding what's happening and trying to see how all this stuff fits together. All right, so with that, any last questions on how all of this stuff works before I move on to Brigade, or any other questions about stuff that's happening in the community and that you guys would like to ask me? So I'm here. So give that a few seconds. Wait for the comment delay. Do a little dance. No? Okay. Well, hopefully this is interesting. Most of the time when I was doing this sort of intro stuff, I was digging into stuff that was probably already released and more public. Mateus is asking, where's the beer? So funny thing, I was looking at the metrics for sort of like, what kind of views we're getting on the TGIK and stuff like that. And one of the things that struck out to me, and I posted on Twitter, is there's this pie chart where one color is like, and it's demographics, because it's about advertising. And anytime you're advertising, people really want to know about demographics. And it was saying that like 97% of my audience is male and like 3% is female. And so I'm like, okay, I think it's just like a sad sort of, state of our industry that's kind of how these things go. But also, I don't want to do stuff that is sort of exclusionary and makes it feel like I'm living in a frat house. So I think maybe the beer is not a great thing. So yeah, I think, trying to not make it, day drinking with Joe is fun, but it's probably not the best sort of face to put forward on this stuff. So I'm gonna calm down on the beer. All right, so let's get into Brigade then. And the gong. So yeah, the gong was actually a personal possession of one of our employees, and he ended up taking it home. So we're trying to decide whether we want to buy an official Heptio gong or not. I'm not sure if that's the best place for us to spend our VC funds, but it's definitely an option. All right. So let's get started with Brigade. So event-driven scripting for Kubernetes. And that's sort of the pitch there. When I was reading through the initial blog post, the interesting, it was kind of like workflow, but also reacting to events, but it's not just sort of like a one thing, but it's a little bit of like, how do you deal with a set of things? So there's a little bit of sort of serverless flavor to this stuff, but it's not sort of a traditional serverless in a Lambda point of view. So that's kind of my impression there. There's not a lot on this landing page here. Let's see, docs goes to sort of a pretty bare page here. And then there's Get Brigade. So I'm just going to press that button. That takes me to the GitHub. Yeah, I'm sorry, the gong. I feel bad. It's like it's kind of sad to see it not be here. So let's just start with the README for the GitHub page, because I think that's probably the best place to start right now. And I'm going to go through and let's just go ahead and make this work. So it looks like I'm going to be grabbing stuff from head. So let's go ahead. If y'all can't see this, let me know. And we'll just go ahead and clone this. And we'll start going through what's happening. So there's a lot of stuff here. So the interesting thing, so this is Azure Brigade. Okay, so it's under the Azure org. And then Helm install based on that thing. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, one of the things is that I don't always install Helm by default. I install it the first time I need stuff. So like 10 minutes ago, I had to install Helm on a fresh cluster. The installing Helm is not as easy as actually it's probably cracked up to be. Generally, the idea is that you just go ahead and run Helm init. But if you do that on a cluster with RBAC, you're going to have a bad time. And so, like, generally, I have to search like Helm RBAC, and then I get to this like somebody's gist, and it's like, okay, you have to do this stuff to essentially create a service account, give it cluster admin, which and then launch Helm with that service account. And if you do a Helm init on an RBAC cluster, it'll fail in a weird way. And so then if you do this, then this will tell you that Helm's already installed, even though it's not like installed in the right way. And so I think you have to give it the -- upgrade flag to actually install, to like say, hey, redo your install so that you're RBAC aware now. So getting Helm installed on an RBAC cluster is a little bit tricky. And, quick feedback to the Helm team, and I should probably, I don't know, hop on their Slack channel and let them know or file an issue, is that even just having that in the README here on the install doc might actually be helpful. I assume that at some point, like Helm init can detect whether RBAC's enabled on the cluster and do all this. Because like even like if I search this page for RBAC, there's nothing there. So, okay, but I got RBAC installed on a Helm cluster. And then we're going to do Helm install Brigade. Now, one of the things that I saw online is that Brigade is now like, there's Brigade v3, which was released 20 hours ago. But when I do the install here, I'm installing with the Helm chart that's built into Brigade, that's built into the Brigade repo. But let's go ahead and let's I don't have VS Code running yet. Let's go ahead and get an idea of what this Helm chart is doing, because I always like to understand what I'm installing before I install it. Okay, there's quite a bit of stuff going on here. And okay, so this is one of those things where I wish there was an easy way with Helm that says like do a dry run and show me the YAML files that are going to be rendered out, because now I have to like, wow, there's like a lot of, okay, there's a lot of sort of parameters here, but there's the image. Okay, so it's in the Deis registry, the Brigade gateway, and then, I keep saying Helm, I meant Brigade, okay, and then tag latest. So we're grabbing the latest tag on both of these things. So this stuff is still pretty fresh when you're like installing stuff and you don't see version stuff. That gives you the chance that the idea that this is still very much in development. Like I would expect this to say like v0.3 if there were like releases. Oh, I can do Helm install, dry run install. Okay, let's try and do that. Or maybe give it with a dry run. Okay, so let's go through and give this a dry run. Does that do it? All right. Is there like a... Okay, I have to give it a debug also? Okay. Okay, cool. And that outputs everything that's going on. All right. Let's go through... Brigade Dryrun.yaml. And then... So let's take a look. So this is Brigade Dryrun.yaml. Okay. So, okay. Oh. it's interesting. So this should go to standard error, but it went to standard out. Okay. So chart, user supplied, and then we have computed values. Okay, so then there's manifest. I see. So there's a whole bunch of debug stuff that actually gets put out here. Okay. So just because like the VS Code really slows down when you have errors in your YAML for whatever, the YAML detection gets really confused. All right, so we're going to do a service account. So this is RBAC enabled, it looks like. We're going to, let's see, another service account. So we have a service account for the controller, for API, for gateway. So we have 4, and then worker. So we have 4 service accounts going on here. We have the service. We have a service for, now I don't see any bindings for those. I assume we'll see those later. Or do I have to? Okay, so I'm not seeing any RBAC bindings here. So that means that I may have to go through. So that's the first thing, is that there's no instructions on RBAC. So this pretty clearly won't work with RBAC out the gate. Let's see, do I have to go through and change the template? Or look at this? What do we have here? We have RBAC enabled false. Okay. So I need to let's redo this and Helm install. I don't use Helm enough to actually know out of the the values. How do I actually values file? I have to put it in a file. Can I pass the values on? Can I pass the value? Okay, so I'm sorry, I've been ignoring the chat here. Okay, so yeah, can I do the value? Okay, so Helm specif. So I have to do it on a file, so I have to create a new file here. Subchart, Helm install with the F flag. Oh, you can do set, okay. So I'm assuming, so let's go through and we'll do set, and then we want to set RBAC.enabled equals true. And then we're going to have, oh, what did I do? Did that? All right, let me reload that file there. Dry run, boom, okay. Computed values, manifest, okay. All right, so here we go. Okay, so now we got this going. I think, yes, now we have roles. So the Brigade API is going to get access to watch and pods and secrets. So this is pretty dangerous that the API service account can see secrets. Be interesting to understand why. The controller can modify secrets and modify pods. And so these things are roles, not cluster roles. So maybe it's working within just a single namespace. So that's not as bad, okay. There's the Brigade Gateway can do things with secrets. And then the worker can do things with secrets, persistent volume claims, and pods. Can pretty much do everything. And then the API, oh, and then there's role bindings. And so these are all, so the good thing here, so these are pretty permissive, but it's totally okay because these are role bindings, which tells me that this thing will be contained within a namespace, which is good. The other thing that I'm seeing about this is that Brigade itself is kind of installed on a namespace by namespace basis. And so it's not a common utility that a cluster administrator would necessarily install. It's really something that a single user would install for their namespace versus a common thing. And if you look at sort of the series of TGIKs that have done around serverless, there's often a lot of sort of machinations and sort of confusion on whether this thing is installed across the entire cluster or whether it's installed for just a single namespace. But it looks like Brigade is developed to just work within a single namespace, which is good. Let's see, the chart is marked 030, but all the services, all the images that we're taking are latest. Okay, so now we do a deployment for the API. There's one of these things. We do a deployment for the controller. There's another, oh wait, the services. So we have a service of type load balancer for the gateway. We have a cluster IP for the API. And then, so we have two services for the API and the gateway are the two that we have. So that means that this thing will open itself up to the world on port 7744. Let's see, the deployment is pretty normal. Okay, so this is a bad pattern here. So they're using latest with if not present. So that's always a bad idea because then as you do updates, you're going to get whatever happens to be on the machine. So latest and if not present is always a bad code smell here. We have the controller. This thing knows about the namespace because, and then it also has a value, an environment variable that gets passed in, which is what is the worker that it wants to use. And then the pull policy for the worker thing. So again, we're using latest with if not present there. The gateway, and we're just doing single replicas of all of these things. So this feels very, again, very sort of dev type of thing. And then the gateway is very similar across this stuff. And it has some readiness probes and stuff like that. So that's cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and install this, and it'll spin up a new namespace and a new load balancer. Now, unfortunately, starting up a load balancer on AWS takes approximately forever. Which is really, really annoying. So you can do a Helm install, set RBAC enabled equals, oh yeah, for this thing, yeah. So I figured that out. Okay, so we're there. I'm sorry, I'm catching up. I'm catching up here on what y'all are saying there. So let's see, so, this stuff should come up. So we're coming like that. We are in the namespace. Okay, we're in the default namespace. So we just installed this in the default. So kube control, get service. We can do this. Here is this thing there. Now, it looks like Brigade is designed such that the external endpoints are being exposed to the world out the gate. Now, what we learned last time is that when I'm doing these things, you have to be very careful that you don't accidentally sort of invite random people on the internet to go ahead and start mucking with your system that you're developing with and playing with. So something that I want to be a little bit careful of. So one of the things I did last time was I took that thing and I mapped it to a TGI domain name, which made it that much easier for people to muck with this stuff. So I'm not going to do that this time. But let's do, okay, so there we go. So that load balancer is spinning up, but I think that load balancer is just for the hooks, like once you get things up and running. So let's go back and see what's going on here. So now we can do, okay, Helm. To create new projects, use the Brigade Project Helm chart. Well, inside the Git repository clone above. Okay, so this is fascinating, is that Helm is being used here for both deploying Brigade itself, but also deploying stuff into Brigade. All right, well, let's give that a try. I think there's using Helm for both sort of deploying, no free Bitcoin for bad actors. Using Helm for both deploying sort of like prepackaged things, but also, is in my mind a different scenario than when you're doing sort of active development of stuff. And in my opinion right now, like if you have to edit YAML files with the Go templating, things start to get a little bit tricky. But let's just give this a try and we'll see how it works out. So Helm inspect values. So we can do this. We have my values, cat my values dot. Okay, so we're getting a whole bunch of stuff that's coming out of this, but pretty much what this is All right, so, okay, so we get a shared secret here. We have empty testbed.git and repository. So this project is called empty testbed. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So there's some. So edit my values. What do I want to edit? When editing my values, follow the instructions in the file for configuring a new project. Once you've customized that file, you can install the project based on your new configuration by passing. I don't know how important this shared secret is. I think this is only useful for like hooks and stuff like that for GitHub. So I don't think I necessarily, do I need to like edit all this stuff? Do I need to have a GitHub project to be able to do stuff? I don't know. Okay, when editing my values, follow the instructions of the file, configure a new project. Once you have customized that file, you can install the project based with that. Now create your first. So what's the relationship between a Brigade project and the code that I'm writing? So I create this JS file. Now what do I do with it? So there's Brig. Now do I have to install Brig to get running with this stuff also? Okay, so Ralph is saying the only thing you need to really do in the hello world is know the project name, and the secret is important for this. Right, okay, that was my guess, is that the secret was not there. So, but okay, so I can go through and I can do Helm install my project here. What does that do? Okay, so Brigade Project. Okay, so Helm inspect values. So like, okay, oh, so Brigade Project, I see. Okay, so we have the Helm chart, but then Brigade Project is a skeleton for another Helm chart for a Brigade Project. The project maps your events to brigades. So what's the difference between a Brigade project and a Kubernetes project? That's okay. README. Okay, this is a minimal starter for Helm. But wait, no, this is Brigade. Okay, this is a README that hasn't been updated. Okay. So that's confusing in itself. So this is a minimal starter for Brigade, not for Helm, but it's in Brigade Project. So that's kind of confusing. And then the templates here, pretty much the only thing that we're actually putting there is a secret that includes, like, this is, so I think this thing just does a bunch of secrets. A project is a pipeline for, well, why don't you call it a Brigade pipeline? Or a bucket brigade. You can call it a bucket, I don't even know. And so this looks like this is just a bunch of, I'm very confused on what I'm doing here, but I'll just follow the instructions. Okay. So Helm inspect value. So I did that. I'm not going to edit those. And then my project. So this is going to create a new namespace then? Do I have to change my project to actually be the project that this thing got installed into? Okay. All right, so I did that. Okay, that went in, all that did is created a secret in the namespace. That secret is Brigade plus like a whole bunch of stuff, which is some sort of hash. Your new Brigade project has been created. This is a Brigade project for GitHub Days empty testbed. It will clone the public repo to check its state, run Helm status my project. Oh, that's the status for this thing, which is really confused. Okay. So it will clone the public repo. So that means I have to have a repo to actually get stuff running in Brigade. How do I do local development? Maybe I have to use Brig. So I'm really confused in terms of why there's another GitHub repo here with Brigade. Okay, so I'm going to read. So Ralph says, okay, so the secret is just for that. So a project ends up being a set of secrets, but also an extra GitHub repo. Brigade projects provide the necessary context for executing the Brigade secret. Okay, so it's an execution context is what a project ends up being. Okay, that sounds about right, I think. But I'm not sure why execution context also includes a GitHub repo. So that's kind of a little bit confusing. Okay, but now we need to build Brig. but there's no releases of Brig. So I guess, no, it's just source code is the releases for Brigade. Okay, so to build Brig, I have to actually build it myself. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. Oh, holy moly. Okay, this thing is... Oh, okay. Okay, so a couple of things here. Number one, holy NPM, right? Like anytime something touches NPM, that's a little bit scary. Ideally, if we're mucking with Node and NPM, that's a whole rat's nest of configuration on your machine. So, like, do that in a container would be my thing. When I did the Core D example, when I was doing the Kubernetes up and running, I was doing some React stuff, and all the NPM React stuff that I was doing, I did in a container. So that's something that's worthwhile. But let's go ahead and update NPM because, why not? This is the way that JavaScript rolls. And then it's also complaining that Brigade is not within a Go path. So, but when I was told to clone this thing, I wasn't told to clone this into my Go path. I was told to just clone it. So, okay, so let's go ahead and fix that up. So Brigade here, do I have a Go path here already? CD Go, CD source, make dir Azure. Let's do move, TGIK. Now, does the Azure have to be capitalized there? Because I noticed when I did the clone, it was cap versus not. But I'm on Mac, which is not case sensitive, so it should be fine. So I have a bunch of crap left over here, but let's do move Brigade here. All right, so yeah, so okay, so music 2745. You're saying I should actually capitalize that. So let's do move Azure. Does this work? There we go. Okay. Yeah, because sometimes things get really persnickety. Okay, so now let's go through and we can do that. Oh. All right, doing dep ensure. So we're doing a little dep action going on here. So this is going to be, let's see, it's doing some stuff. I think I have a recent version of dep installed. It's Diet Coke, not beer. Dep is, I was talking to the folks working on dep, and this particular thing here, the speed, it's being worked on. So dep is still in development, but it's great to see things starting to converge around a solution here. So Ali, what are you saying? So you dropped in a little bit late. If you have any questions while we're waiting for dep to do its thing, let me know. And I can fill you in on where we're at. So what I'm going through is the process of trying to get Brigade up and working. I got Brigade installed. That's relatively easy using Helm. There's some confusion around sort of what a Brigade project is and what that concept is. And like, it's another Helm chart that installs a secret, but that also references another GitHub repo. So to me, that's a little bit confusing. Okay, so we did the dep ensure. Now we're building it. And now to do anything, okay, so yeah, so my CPU is getting maxed out here. So that may cause some stuttering in the video, hopefully not. But now to do anything, I have to get Brig up and running, and which is the command line for Brigade. But is there a relationship between the words Brig and Brigade? I mean, Brig is like the prison, and then Brigade. You're all totally lost? Okay, I'm just trying to get up and running. So like, I apologize if you're all lost. I'm just trying to get Brig, this up and running. But okay, so now we have Brig built, so I can do, okay, so we can do bin Brig. We got that going. We're good to go. And so there we go. And now Okay, so assuming you have a project named My Project. Oh, check out the tutorial for more. Well, okay, so we're just getting up and running. So what is My Project? You have a project named My Project, but My Project was named My Dash Project, right? But I have no idea what's going on with the projects. Oh wait, this thing moved, so I have to restart VS Code in that directory. I know Brig and Brigade, I'm just laughing about it. So okay, so I can, bin Brig project list. Okay. Oh, so the name of the project is empty testbed. So it's, okay, so now and then when I run this, does this have to be in the GitHub repo that actually this thing is actually seeing? So does this mean that I have to create another? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let me start a new tab here. Oh, wait, that's my small font. Let me start a new tab here. So let's do that, git init, and then I don't think I have any private repos that I care about too much that you guys see in. Let me go ahead and do a new repo here. Brigade Project. I think I have to do this. So, but the JS file has to be checked in. No? It can be anywhere? Does it pick it up off of disk? Okay, so maybe I don't need to do this. So let's just go through and we'll create a JS file here called, what was the sample that we were starting with? Brigade.js, okay. So, oh, it already exists. Oh, do we have one of those? Oh, well, no, there's a lot going on here. Okay, so we have a file called brigade.js, but it's not the brigade.js that's mentioned in the README. There's a different brigade.js. So let's do it here. So we'll do another thing here. This will be clean. I accidentally messed up my key combos there. There we go. Okay. So we'll do copy and paste this in here. And we have Brigadier also. We have Brigade, Brig, and Brigadier. So that brigade.js is specific to Brigade the project, not the thing that I want to use as my example. Okay. So we got this in a separate directory all together. Let's go through and switch back here and do, what did I want to run? I wanted to run brig run blah, blah, blah. But if I do that from, but I have to let's see, I want to copy bin.brig. I'll just copy that into that bin. So here now I have brig. Okay, great. So brig project list. And here we see brig does noun verb versus verb noun. Oh, okay. Oh no, the problem here is, sorry. It can't talk to. There we go. Empty testbed. Okay. Is the name of this thing. So I can do brig run -f brigade Is that the name of the project? I think. No. Oh, wait. Error. Container Brigade runner and prod blah, blah, blah is waiting to start. Usage Brigade run. Okay. Container pod initializing. So container, so I did this, now I see an error, but pod initializing seems like a normal thing that should be happening. Oh no, no, Brigade worker master, so it's both a master and a worker. My guess is that the master is the thing. Okay, I don't see. So where is that pod? No, it's all there. So I don't know. So something broke. I have no idea what's going on. Let's see. Is this working now? It takes it a while. No, I get the same error that I got before. Oh, wait. Now this thing is running. It's in pod initializing. Maybe. Why? What is it initializing? So it's the master for that particular pipeline. Oh. Okay, so let's see. You fell out of the tunnel, so logs aren't streaming. Okay, so you're saying that it came and went, the tunnel broke. In the meanwhile, the worker pod was created, ran, and returned. Kube control logs will show what happened. Okay, so this thing ran. It's so successfully defined. It did a setup succeeded for volume brigade build. So there's VCS sidecar, pulling the image git sidecar latest. So we have that. We have the brigade worker. We pulled all that, created it, and started it. Now this thing is, all it's going to do is do console log hello world. So how do I get to those consoles? Is that the tunnel is supposed to say open so you can see it. So I didn't see, so which tunnel? Is this does it actually create a tunnel to the worker? I mean, it looks like, this feels like I did something wrong. Ralph, did I do something wrong? So there's a bug in the tunnel. Okay. So there's some sort of timing issue here that got things confused. Okay. So, but I guess, oh, what is it? It's show all dash A. Okay. So these things exited with an error. Environment, there's a whole bunch of things. Container, I'm just looking at this. To run in the logs, so that worker, so yeah. So I'm trying to see here, annotation, so status failed. So it might have failed because schedule pulled, created, started. I don't see where the exit code is and actually what failed. Okay, so we have a init container here. So this init container is pulling, you know what, oh, project list, okay. Does this actually exist? All right, so that's something. Oh, and there's a brigade.js in here too. So does this pull the brigade.js from empty testbed, or I'm so... All right, but we'll ignore that for now. I don't think that's it. Okay, so you want me to do a log on the worker pod? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's see. Secrets, brigade, blah, blah, blah is forbidden. Cannot get the secrets in namespace default. Oh, so you guys aren't propagating the service account through this stuff, and you're assuming that the default service account has stuff. So you guys really need to test this stuff on RBAC clusters, right? At some point, like, it's pretty clear that everybody should be running RBAC. And I think it's a bad code smell for me when I try out a new project and there's really no provisions given to testing on RBAC. All right, so let's break out of jail here. So we have this old thing. We haven't updated this in a while, but we do have some docs here, and this is where I keep my. Here's how we go through, and we're gonna give. Let's see, cube control, create role binding, default admin. So this is bad. Don't do this, kids. Cluster role. I'm going to give the service account equals default namespace equals default. All right, so what I just did there is I gave the default service account in my default namespace admin access within that namespace. And so this essentially emulates turning off RBAC to a large degree for that particular namespace. So let's go. So this, if that's the error that we're hitting, let's go ahead and run this again and see what's going on here. There's all a debug. There we go. Okay, well, we got another error. Cube control get for logs. Okay, bad request. Okay, yeah, so RBAC is a thing, right? So we like, but like, just to give, give folks the benefit of the doubt, I think, a lot of times when you're playing with this stuff early on, you get into a flow. If your flow doesn't happen to have RBAC, you make a ton of progress with this stuff. But I think it definitely highlights some problems that you're going to have. So container brigade runner in pod blah, blah, blah is waiting to start. So this thing node pre-start, so empty script found, failing back to VCS, pre-state source brigade.js. So is that the... oh, wow, this creates a PVC for every run. Destroying storage, destroying PVC. No. Okay, so a couple of pieces of feedback here. I know, Ralph, you're probably taking notes here. Assuming that you can use PVs and PVCs is actually going to be pretty, that's a pretty big deal. Number one is that there's a cost associated with that. Number two is that if you're doing a lot of this stuff, if you're bringing PVs back and forth really fast, you can hit rate limits in an active cluster when you're talking to AWS. They really don't like it if you're thrashing them that hard. There's a limit to the number of PVs that you can attach to a VM. That varies by cloud provider, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. And there will often be, like, if I were going to put together a cluster using Raspberry Pis, right, it's not going to have a cloud provider that has PV support built in. There's like a hack in like Minikube to make this stuff working, but the requirement to have PVs up and running is definitely something that's worth thinking about. Okay, so this thing though is, and then it's a little bit. Okay, so yeah, so that makes sense. So let's see. So let's go back and did we see Did we actually run our thing though? I don't like, where does hello world actually get outputted to? Did I miss that? Because it looks like, yeah, we didn't see the hello. So I don't know what's going on here. So let's try and run this again and see what happens. I mean, starting up a, oh wait, okay, so this is running and it says it's done now. And obviously, so this is a different identifier, so it's a totally different run. I don't see the console though. I'm not sure where that would be. If execute, so maybe it didn't execute. Cat Brigade. I did exec, on exec. Default event fired. It says after. Hook exec in a state success. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, new pod per run. So every run is hermetic and does its own thing. So that's actually kind of cool. So maybe we can try something a little bit more interesting. So let's go through the tutorial here. I guess I start with index or Brigade at a glance. Oh, okay. Quick install guide. Okay, so we already went through a bunch of this. Cluster ingress. So by default, Brigade is configured to set up a service as a load balance for your Brigade build system. My build system? What is my build system? Is this the, I don't have that. Did I do something wrong? Oh wait, but this told me to actually use this Helm chart, not, whoa, this is a whole nother page. I haven't seen this. First steps. Place to start, quick install guide. So this actually, add this. Azure.github.io, where, and then that's the repo that I'm adding to Helm? That's a totally different thing than the instructions that I had before. Okay, builds are pipelines, okay. Okay, the infra worked, but the script didn't get injected. Where does the script actually, how does it get uploaded? This is the thing, is that I don't see any like third-party resources or anything else like that being created. Get CRDs. So we don't have that. Docs are out of sync. I'm doing the right thing. Okay. So there's the whole doc site. So I go to this, and this thing is totally different, but okay. And this is different. So Brigade is Brigade Server. Brigade is just the name of the Helm release. Brigade Server with the Brigade appended. Notes from Minikube, ACS. Okay, but we're not using Minikube or ACS. But okay, so let's assume we have it installed. Writing your first CI pipeline. Helm status Brigade server. Is it Brigade? There we go. Okay, so we got that up and running. Okay, now I'm bringing Python in. Why do I need pip? Where's Python come into this? Okay, Brigade run passes your script in the call. Oh, so when you run, it actually goes through and you actually you inject the code right then and there. How does Brigade talk to the server that's running? Is there like an architectural diagram someplace? Does that happen over that public IP address that we're talking about? Is there some sort of auth there? So I really don't understand what those two services. This is tutorial if you want to follow. This Python stuff is trying out the app. Okay, so, all right, well, let's just go with it. Creating your first application. Let's go ahead and do that. Make dir open. So let's go UUID app, new file. This is do a little. Oh, okay. So we got some Python going on here. Go ahead and run that. Oh no, I don't want to install Pylint. It's not Brigade, it's building an app. Hope that works. I've not tried it. Okay. It's auth using Cube. How are we auth using Cube? Are you guys doing something like taking the token out of my Cube? Like, let's look at the source of the Brigade source. All right, I have a bad feeling here. Brigade client, build list, project list. Store, get builds. Okay, so this thing. So how is it using the cube config? I think I know why it's broken, and it's a really bad thing. So where is... So is this thing not being used? Lookup env cube config. Okay, so global config, blah, blah, OS lookup env, expand env. Cube config path is what we're looking for. Okay. So here's run. Okay, so we're getting clients, run event, there's the namespace. Okay, so we're actually doing that. Script runner, Brigade, create. Okay, so how is it using Kubernetes auth? Oh, there's docs, topics, design. Okay, I'll take a look at that in a second. So how is it, so we're creating a build, we're talking to package store that we're doing that stuff, and then where there's a delay and we're actually going through and doing pod log. So what is this store thing here? Brigade package store. Storage. So this is the thing, gets projects, gets build, gets jobs, create build. So build is a pipeline. So I list the secrets here. New build from secret. So this goes through and it pulls all the secrets out and returns that. And then create build goes through and creates a new secret. Oh, okay. So essentially secrets are being used kind of as config maps or TPRs or stuff like that. Okay. So CRDs would probably be better there, but I guess like there's this odd thing with Kubernetes where sometimes you want to use secrets and sometimes you'd want to use CRDs, and that's why everything needs permissions to muck with secrets. Yeah. Docs. Okay, so any ideas? So I don't want to I want to read the code, but I don't want to read the code live here. Any ideas on why this isn't working? Because one of the things I suspected was that maybe Brig was actually reading the token out of my cube config and then passing that up, but I have things set up such that I'm using public key encryption, and so you can't do that. That would be a really bad thing if that's what was happening, but it sounds like that's not what's happening, so that's good. So topics, let's look at design, just to understand. So a trigger goes through the gateway, that turns into an event, and then that triggers a build. A build is essentially a pipeline, kind of. So what's, so okay, so a build is, so what's the difference between pipeline and build? It looks like maybe they're used interchangeably, because here it says build, here it says pipeline. Yeah, so okay, and then we have Brigade is the name of a project. There's a controller, gateway, and API. Brig is the command line client. Event is a Brigade issued indicator that something happened, right? And so there's all different ways to do that. Gateways transform outside triggers into, so the gateway, it's cool, okay. Brigade.js is the standard name for a JavaScript file that contains one or more Brigade event handlers. Job is a build unit comprised of one or more build steps called tasks. Task is a step within a job. Is that a Kubernetes job or is that some other type of job? So build equals pipeline equals workflow equals DAG. Okay. So yeah, so you know, really settling on the terminology there, I think would help me understand this stuff from scratch. Webhook is incoming things. That's a type of event. Project is a named collection of data that Brigade operates on. Often, though not always, a project is linked to the Git project. Okay, so it looks like this isn't a generic workflow system. It's really, really targeted at sort of like a CI type of thing, where there's some helper to automatically sync Git for you when you're actually going through and doing stuff. And so that's why, okay, so that Git repo that's referenced from these things really is the thing that you're operating on your pipeline on. So I think some of the confusion here is that all the stuff that I read up until I started playing with the project really talked about Brigade being a more generic pipeline. When you get into the code, it's very clear that it's super focused on CI/CD build tasks where you actually have a Git repo that you're actually, you know, talking to, right? And I think that there was a little bit of a, you know, I suspect that maybe as this was being released, there was like a shift of like, hey, this is bigger than just CI. Let's start talking about it as a generic pipeline type of thing. But the rest of the project hasn't really caught up to that yet. VCS sidecar is the thing that knows. Okay, so like, I get it now. So the project is the Git repo plus other bits that you're working with. There's this assumption that you want to have the Git source for your project available with all your tasks as you're doing stuff. Yeah, okay. And typically, and so, okay, so that all works well. Okay. All right. Well, I think, you know, unfortunately, we're out of time. I'll tell you what, Ralph, why don't you, you know, we can talk to me offline. You know, for those who you know, don't know, Ralph is a product manager over at Microsoft, so he's been heavily involved in this stuff. You know, let's take a run at this, you know, again in a little while, maybe, and actually sort of like hopefully, you know, we can skip past a bunch of the confusion starting out and really dig into the meat of how this stuff works. I don't feel like I got quite far enough to really start playing with the system, because I just getting to the idea of like what are the core concepts and what do I need to actually get this stuff up and running. That's something that took me quite a bit to get there. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But with that, I think I'm going to sign off now. But I really, really appreciate everybody that's watched. If you can go ahead and give the video a thumbs up and a subscribe. I'd really, really enjoy that. And I think next week I'm gonna try and demo Contour, which is the ingress controller I talked about at the beginning, based on Envoy. So I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail about what Contour does, how it works, and some of the motivations behind that. So I will talk to you all later. Thank you very much for tuning in. And you know, I think with a lot of these things, there's always, you know, a learning process here. There's a lot of these that I'd love to be able to touch on again, given time. So yeah, it's always a work in progress. So thanks for tuning in, and see you all next week, and have a great weekend if your weekend hasn't already started.